Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. Simon Craze stared at his cards through a haze of cheap synth alcohol, wondering exactly when this evening had gone so spectacularly wrong. The grimy neon lights of the Last Stop spacebar flickered overhead, casting sickly purple shadows across the felt-covered table. Behind him, he could feel the hot breath of 3 Taurian enforcers, their horns probably sharp enough to skewer him if he made the wrong move. "Your bet, Earthman," growled Tyrus, the leader of the gang. His massive hand rested meaningfully on Simon's shoulder, claws just barely pricking through the fabric of his worn pilot's jacket. Simon forced a casual smile. "Now, gentlemen, about that debt. Shut it." Tyrus tightened his grip. "You either play, or we collect. Your choice." The cards trembled slightly in Simon's hands. 4 queens and a 10. A damn good hand in normal circumstances, but nothing about this game felt normal. Across the table, his opponent watched him with unnaturally bright eyes. The ancient alien looked like he'd been carved from pale marble, his skin so white it was almost translucent. Despite his apparent age, there was something sharp and calculating in his gaze. "Perhaps," the old alien's voice rasped like sandpaper on steel, "we could make this more interesting?" Simon's internal warning system, the one that had kept him alive through countless shady deals and close calls, started screaming. He'd learned long ago that intergalactic poker was a fool's game. The rules change depending on the sector, the species, and sometimes the phase of whatever moon you happen to be orbiting. "I'm listening," Simon said, because really, what choice did he have? The old alien's thin lips curved into what might have been a smile. "I see you're a man who appreciates value, so let us raise the stakes beyond mere credits." He paused, his eyes glowing brighter. "I wager my daughter." The bar, already quiet, went dead silent. Even the Taurians behind Simon stopped breathing. Simon blinked. "Your daughter?" "Indeed." The alien's fingers drummed on the table. "A prize beyond monetary value, I assure you. Against her, I'll consider your current debts cleared. All of them." Simon's mind raced. This had to be a trick. Nobody wagered people anymore. It had been outlawed in most civilized systems centuries ago, but the Taurians were pressing closer, and his tab at this bar alone could buy a decent-sized shuttle. "And if I lose?" Simon asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The old alien's smile widened. "Then you work for me, until your debts are paid, with interest." Simon looked at his cards again. 4 queens. Almost unbeatable in standard Earth poker. But this wasn't Earth, and he'd learned the hard way that some species had very different ideas about card hierarchy. But what choice did he have? The Taurians would break both his legs and probably sell his organs to cover the debt. At least this way he had a chance. "Deal," Simon said, the word falling from his lips like a stone. The old alien laid down his cards with deliberate slowness. 3 kings, a jack, and Simon's heart stopped. The last card was blank. "An interesting hand," the alien mused, "but not, I think, enough to beat 4 queens." The words took a moment to penetrate Simon's alcohol-fogged brain. "Wait, I won?" The alien stood with surprising grace. "Indeed you did, Simon Craze. Indeed you did." He raised his voice. "Ariza, your presence is required." The air in the bar seemed to thicken, and Simon felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. A soft humming filled the room, like the sound of crystal being stroked, and then she appeared. Simon had seen his share of beautiful women across the galaxy, but Ariza made them all look like crude sketches next to a masterpiece. Her skin was a deep, rich violet that seemed to shimmer under the bar's harsh lights. Silver hair cascaded past her shoulders in waves that caught the light like liquid mercury. But it was her eyes that held him captive, brilliant gold, with subtle patterns swirling in their depths like solar storms. She moved with impossible grace, wearing what looked like a combination of high-tech armor and flowing fabric that emphasized every perfect curve. A small smirk played at the corners of her full lips as she approached the table. "Well, well," she purred, her voice like warm honey with an edge of steel underneath. "So you're the one who won me." She leaned forward, placing both hands on the table, and Simon caught a whiff of something exotic, like starflowers and celestial fire. "I hope you know what you're getting into, mortal." Simon forced himself to tear his gaze away from her and look back at the old alien. This has to be some kind of joke. "I never joke about contracts," the old alien said gravely. "The game was fair, the stakes were clear, and you won. Arisa is now yours, as is your freedom from debt." The Taurians behind Simon shifted uncomfortably. Tyrus cleared his throat. "Lord Frey, surely you don't mean—" "I mean exactly what I say." The old alien Lord Frey cut him off. "The debts are cleared, all of them." Arisa circled the table like a predator, her movements fluid and mesmerizing. She stopped beside Simon's chair and traced one finger along his shoulder. Despite the warmth in the bar, her touch sent a chill down his spine. "You look confused, husband," she said, and Simon nearly choked on his drink. "Husband?" he sputtered. "Now wait just a minute." "The terms were traditional," Lord Frey explained, as if discussing the weather. "By winning my daughter in the game, you have entered into a binding marriage contract under the laws of the ancient houses." Simon stood up so fast his chair clattered to the floor. "That's insane. You can't just—" He was cut off by the sound of sirens outside the bar. Red and blue lights began flashing through the grimy windows. "Attention!" A mechanically amplified voice boomed. "This is the Galactic Council Enforcement Division. We have detected an unauthorized binding ceremony. All parties are ordered to remain still for processing." The bar erupted into chaos. Patrons dove for cover or made breaks for the various exits. The Taurians disappeared so fast they might as well have teleported. "Oh, those tedious bureaucrats," Arisa sighed. She grabbed Simon's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Time to go, darling." "Go? Go where? What's happening?" The air in front of them began to shimmer and twist, forming what looked like a tear in reality itself. Through it, Simon could see flashes of strange landscapes and impossible colors. "Wait," he tried to pull away, but Arisa's grip was like iron. "I don't— Trust me," she said. And for just a moment her confident smirk faltered, showing something almost vulnerable underneath. "Please?" The bar's door exploded inward with a crash. Figures in sleek enforcement armor began pouring in, weapons raised. "Halt! Arisa of House Frey, you are in violation of Statute 7249B. Arisa's eyes flashed with defiance. "Sorry, boys, but I'm a married woman now." She yanked Simon toward the portal. "Hold on tight, husband. This might get interesting." The last thing Simon saw before they plunged through the reality tier was Lord Frey, still standing calmly at the poker table. The old alien raised his hand in what might have been a wave, or possibly a blessing. And then they were falling through space that wasn't space, colors that couldn't exist, and Simon's world turned inside out. Simon's head was still spinning when they materialized in what appeared to be a luxury suite aboard a space station. The artificial gravity kicked in a second too late, causing him to stumble. Arisa caught him with surprising strength, her violet hand steady against his chest. "First time through a quantum tier?" she asked, amused. "Don't worry, the nausea passes." Simon pushed away from her, trying to ignore how his skin tingled where she touched him. "What the hell is going on? Who are you really?" Arisa's golden eyes flickered with something that might have been regret. She walked to a viewport that showed an unfamiliar star field. I'm exactly who my father said I am, though he left out a few minor details. Like what? Like the fact that I'm the heir to the cursed throne of the Ash Empire. She turned to face him, her silver hair catching starlight, and that by winning me in that game, you've not only become my husband but also tied your life force to mine through an unbreakable ancient contract. Simon dropped into a nearby chair. You're joking. I wish. She materialized 2 glasses of something that glowed blue and handed him one. Drink this. It helps with the quantum sickness. He took a cautious sip. It tasted like liquid lightning. So you're telling me I'm married to a space princess? Exiled space princess, she corrected. There's currently a galaxy-wide manhunt for me. Political assassins, bounty hunters, religious zealots, the usual crowd. She drained her glass. Oh, and there are some rather persistent spectral entities demanding I complete some ancient ritual, but they're really the least of our problems. As if on cue, an explosion rocked the station. Alarms began blaring. Speaking of problems, Arisa muttered. She waved her hand and a holographic display appeared, showing multiple ships approaching. Looks like the Crimson Syndicate found us. They're not fans of my family's claim to the throne. Can't we just, I don't know, get divorced? Arisa laughed, but there was no humor in it. Try to break the contract and we both die. Rather spectacularly, I'm told. The energy binding us would literally tear us apart. Another explosion, closer this time. The station's artificial gravity flickered. So what you're saying, Simon said slowly, is that I've accidentally married into an intergalactic war? Pretty much. Arisa drew what looked like a high-tech pistol from nowhere. On the bright side, you seem to be taking it better than my last 3 potential husbands. What happened to them? They ran. Her smile turned predatory. It didn't end well. The contract has a way of enforcing itself. The door to their suite exploded inward. Armed figures in blood-red armor poured through, weapons raised. "Death to the false heir!" one of them shouted. Arisa fired her weapon, which released a burst of energy that turned the first attacker to stone. "So, darling," she called over her shoulder as she dove for cover, "still glad you won that game?" Simon flipped the heavy table for cover, his smuggler's instincts kicking in. "I haven't decided if I like you yet, and I'm already signed up for death." "Then you're going to love what happens next." Arisa's laughter rang out over the chaos of battle. She moved like a deadly dancer, each shot finding its mark with terrifying precision. Simon grabbed a fallen attacker's weapon and joined the fight. Whatever was happening, whatever mess he'd gotten himself into, one thing was becoming disturbingly clear. He was starting to enjoy it. After dispatching the last of the Crimson Syndicate attackers, Arisa led Simon through a series of increasingly luxurious corridors. Her movements were precise and efficient, but he couldn't help noticing how she stayed close to him, occasionally brushing against him in ways that seemed less than accidental. "We need to get to my ship," she said, checking corners as they moved. "This station isn't safe anymore. Do you have any safe places left in the galaxy?" "Not really." She flashed him a grin. "Isn't it exciting?" Before Simon could respond, the air in front of them shimmered. 3 ghostly figures materialized, translucent beings of pure energy that pulsed with an unsettling rhythm. "Arisa of the Cursed Throne," they spoke in unison, their voices like wind through ancient ruins. "The ritual must be completed." Arisa groaned. "Not now, guys. We're kind of in the middle of something. The balance must be maintained. The marriage must be consecrated under the light of the triple moons." Simon raised an eyebrow. "The what now?" "Don't ask," Arisa muttered. She raised her weapon, which seemed to hum with energy. "Look, I'll deal with your ritual later. Right now, a new alarm blared through the station. Attention! Galactic Enforcement Division approaching. All citizens clear docking bays. Perfect timing, Arisa grabbed Simon's hand. Sorry, boys. Rain check on the whole ritual thing. They sprinted past the spectral beings who wailed in frustration. Simon felt an icy chill as they passed through the ghostly forms. You know, he panted as they ran, most women just want dinner and dancing for a first date. Arisa's laugh echoed through the corridor. Boring. Besides, nothing brings people together like running for their lives. They burst into a massive docking bay. In the center sat what had to be Arisa's ship, a sleek vessel that looked like it had been designed by artists with a serious edge fetish. Every line of it screamed expensive and dangerous. Beautiful, isn't she? Arisa's eyes gleamed with pride. The Midnight Thorn, fastest ship in 3 sectors. And presumably stolen? Liberated, she corrected, pressing her palm to the entry scanner, from some very unpleasant people who were using her to hunt me. The ship's ramp descended with a soft hiss. Behind them, the sound of boots and shouted orders grew closer. Arisa of House Frey, a voice boomed. This is your final warning. They scrambled aboard just as plasma bolts began scorching the deck around them. The ship's interior was as luxurious as it was functional, all black surfaces and crimson accents. Arisa threw herself into the pilot's seat, her fingers dancing across the controls. Strap in, husband. This might get a bit rough. You know, Simon said as he buckled into the co-pilot's chair, I'm starting to think your father set me up. The ship lifted off smoothly, but enforcement vessels were already moving to block their exit. Arisa's smile turned wicked. Of course he did. The question is, why? She pulled back on the controls and the ship shot forward like a bullet. But we can discuss family drama later. Right now, let's see if you're as good at evading authority as your reputation suggests. The Midnight Thorn sliced through space like a predator, with Arisa handling the controls as if the ship was an extension of her body. Simon found himself alternating between watching their pursuit and watching her. The way her violet skin seemed to glow with excitement, how her silver hair caught the light of passing stars. Stop staring and make yourself useful, she said, not taking her eyes off the navigation display. Secondary weapons control is on your right. Simon grabbed the controls just as 3 enforcement vessels emerged from hyperspace directly ahead of them. I'm starting to think the entire galaxy wants you dead. Not dead, she corrected, executing a barrel roll that brought them impossibly close to an asteroid. They want to control me. The cursed throne carries real power, even in exile. A warning light flashed on the console. One of the pursuing ships had locked weapons. Speaking of control, Simon said as he returned fire, forcing their pursuers to break formation. What exactly does this marriage contract entail, besides the whole death if we try to break it thing? Arisa's lips curved into a dangerous smile. Worried about the fine print? Given that I'm currently in a firefight with space cops, yeah, a little. She pulled the ship into a tight spiral, using the asteroid field for cover. Her shoulder brushed against his as she leaned over to adjust something on his control panel, and Simon caught that intoxicating scent again, starflowers and celestial fire. The contract is simple, she said, her face close to his. We're bound together, physically, mentally, intimately. The last word rolled off her tongue like honey. Try to fight it, and it gets stronger. Try to run. She shrugged. Well, let's just say the universe has a way of keeping us together. As if to demonstrate her point, a stray shot from one of their pursuers clipped the ship's shield. The impact threw them together, and suddenly, Arisa was practically in his lap. She didn't seem in any hurry to move. You're enjoying this, Simon accused. Maybe. Her golden eyes locked with his. But I notice you haven't pushed me away." Before he could respond, a massive cruiser dropped out of hyperspace directly above them. Arisa swore in what sounded like 3 different languages and finally returned to her seat. "Religious zealots," she explained, reading the ship's signature. "They believe the cursed throne belongs to their prophesied Messiah." She fired the main engines, pushing them deeper into the asteroid field. "They're not very happy about our marriage." "Does anyone approve of this marriage?" "My father, apparently," she laughed, "though I'm starting to think he knows something we don't." The Zealot's cruiser opened fire with some kind of energy weapon Simon had never seen before. Where the beam struck asteroids, the rock simply ceased to exist. What was that?" "Void cannons," Arisa said grimly. "They're not supposed to exist anymore. Hold on tight." She pulled back on the controls and the Midnight Thorn shot straight up, perpendicular to the plane of the asteroid field. The maneuver pressed them back into their seats with crushing force. Through gritted teeth, Simon managed to target the cruiser's main weapon array. "Nice shot," Arisa approved as their weapons found their mark. The cruiser's void cannons went dark. "You know, we make a pretty good team." "Is that the contract talking?" She gave him a sidelong glance that made his pulse quicken. "Why don't you come closer and find out?" Before Simon could respond, a new voice filled the cockpit, ancient, ethereal, and distinctly annoyed. Children of the mortal realm, the spectral beings had somehow manifested inside the ship. The ritual cannot be delayed. The triple moons align in 3 cycles. "Oh, for crying out loud," Arisa muttered. She punched in coordinates for a jump to hyperspace. "We're a little busy right now." "The balance must be—" The rest of their pronouncement was cut off as the Midnight Thorn jumped to hyperspace, leaving their pursuers and the ghostly beings behind. The sudden silence felt almost deafening. In the quiet of hyperspace, the Midnight Thorn's cockpit felt suddenly intimate. The blue-white swirl of faster-than-light travel cast shifting patterns across Arisa's violet skin. She let out a long breath and leaned back in her chair, the tension slowly leaving her shoulders. "That was close," Simon said, trying to keep his voice casual despite his racing heart. Arisa stretched like a cat, her movements deliberately graceful. Just another day in the life of an exiled princess. She turned to face him, and there was something different in her golden eyes now, less playful predator, more genuine curiosity. "You handled yourself well back there." "I've had practice running from authorities." "Yes, but usually not with void cannons and spectral beings involved." She stood up, moving to a panel in the wall that produced 2 glasses of something that sparkled like liquid starlight. "We should probably talk." Simon accepted the offered drink. "About the fact that we're apparently married, being hunted by half the galaxy and bound by some ancient magical contract." "That," she agreed, perching on the edge of the navigation console in front of him. "And about why you're not more freaked out by all this." The drink tasted like sunshine and electricity. "Who says I'm not freaked out?" "Please." She rolled her eyes. "I've seen how you react in a crisis. Most people would be crying in a corner by now. But you—" She leaned forward slightly. "You're almost enjoying it. Maybe I'm just good at hiding my panic. Maybe." Her voice dropped lower. "Or maybe there's a reason my father chose that particular game, in that particular bar on that particular night." Simon studied her face, trying to read past the confident facade. "You think this was all planned?" "I think," she said carefully, "that my father doesn't do anything without multiple reasons." She set down her glass. "The question is, what did he see in you that made him decide you were worth the risk?" "Risk of what?" Instead of answering, Arisa reached out and touched his chest, right over his heart. Simon felt a jolt like static electricity, but warmer, more alive. A faint purple glow emanated from where her fingers made contact. "The contract," she whispered. "It's already stronger than it should be. Almost like—" "Like what?" She met his eyes, and for once her expression was completely unguarded. "Like we were meant to—" The ship dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder, throwing them off balance. Simon caught her instinctively, and suddenly they were pressed together, her body fitting against his like a missing piece of a puzzle. The purple glow spread between them, warm and electric. "Oh," Arisa breathed. Later, Simon wouldn't be able to say who moved first. One moment they were staring at each other, and the next they were kissing like their lives depended on it. Her lips were soft but demanding, tasting of starlight and danger. His hands tangled in her silver hair as hers gripped his shoulders. The purple glow intensified, surrounding them both in a cocoon of light. Simon felt something shift inside him, like a key turning in a lock he hadn't known existed. He could feel Arisa's pulse racing in time with his own, could sense her surprise and delight as if they were his own emotions. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, the glow slowly faded but didn't completely disappear. A thin thread of purple light still connected them, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "Well," Arisa said, her usual confidence slightly shaken, "that was unexpected? I was going to say inevitable." She touched her lips thoughtfully. "The contract, it's not just binding us anymore, it's changing us." Before Simon could ask what she meant, every alarm on the ship suddenly went off at once. They sprang apart, turning to the view screen. They had emerged from hyperspace into the middle of what looked like an entire armada. Dozens of ships surrounded them, their weapons already powered up. On the main screen, a message flashed in ancient script: "The triple moons await. The ritual must begin." Arisa groaned and dropped her head onto Simon's shoulder. "I don't suppose you'd be interested in a honeymoon in an alternate dimension?" Simon looked at the armada, then at the beautiful, dangerous woman in his arms, then at the purple light still connecting them. He thought about safe, boring smuggling runs and simple card games, about a life without cosmic destiny or ancient contracts. "You know what?" He grinned and pulled her closer. "I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She looked up at him, gold eyes sparkling. "Even with the whole galaxy trying to kill us?" "Especially then." He kissed her again, quickly but with promise. "Besides, I've always wanted to crash a ritual." Arisa's laugh was bright and wild as she slid back into the pilot's seat. "In that case, husband mine, let's give them a show they'll never forget." The Midnight Thorn's engines roared to life as they prepared to face whatever destiny and the galaxy had in store for them. Together, the Midnight Thorn hovered at the edge of the triple moon's gravitational field, their combined light casting an eerie glow across the cockpit. The armada surrounded them in a perfect sphere formation, weapons still trained on their position. "So," Simon said, studying the ancient text scrolling across their screens, "want to tell me what this ritual is really about?" Arisa's fingers traced the purple energy thread still connecting them. "The Cursed Throne isn't just a fancy title. It's, well, imagine a cosmic contract so powerful it can rewrite reality itself. And let me guess, there's a catch. There's always a catch." She pulled up a holographic display showing the 3 moons. "The throne's power comes from binding contracts, agreements that shape the very fabric of space-time. But the original ruler, thousands of years ago, made a contract so terrible it cursed the entire system." "What kind of contract?" "They tried to bind death itself." Arisa's voice was grim. "Wanted to live forever, rule forever. But you can't cheat death without consequences. The curse spread through the entire contract system, corrupting it. Now every binding agreement carries a touch of that corruption." The ship's sensors picked up energy readings from the armada. Not weapons, but something older, more primal. The spectral beings, Simon realized. They're not just random ghosts, are they? They're the original contract holders. Arisa's golden eyes reflected the moonlight. They've been trying to force each heir to complete a ritual that would restore the original contract and the original curse to full power. And your father knew this? He knew everything. She smiled sadly, including the fact that the only way to break the curse is to create a stronger contract, one based on something more powerful than the fear of death. The purple thread between them pulsed brighter. Love, Simon said quietly. He set us up because he knew we'd fall in love. True love, Arisa corrected. The kind that happens instantly, defies logic, and can't be broken by any power in the universe. She moved closer to him. The moment I saw you in that bar, I felt it. The contract just made it official. Arisa of the Cursed Throne, the spectral voices boomed through their communication system. The ritual must begin. The contract must be renewed. Simon looked at the ancient beings' ships, their energy signatures pulsing in patterns that hurt his eyes. So what happens if we refuse? Traditionally, Arisa's hands flew over the controls, bringing up defensive systems. They try to destroy us and find the next heir, but something's different this time. She gestured to the purple thread connecting them. This bond shouldn't be possible. The curse prevents any contract stronger than itself. And yet, here we are. Here we are. She turned to him, her expression fierce. Which means we might have a chance to do what no heir has ever done, rewrite the rules themselves. The largest of the spectral ships moved closer, its hull seeming to shift between dimensions. The triple moons align, the ritual chamber awaits. Arisa's eyes lit up with that dangerous gleam Simon was starting to love. You know what? Let's give them what they want, just not the way they expect. You have a plan? I have the beginning of a plan. She grinned. How do you feel about a little cosmic con game? Before Simon could respond, their ship was caught in a tractor beam of pure energy. The Midnight Thorn began moving toward what appeared to be a massive space station that had somehow remained hidden behind the central moon. The Ash Temple, Arisa explained as they were pulled forward. The heart of the contract system. Every binding agreement in the galaxy is recorded and enforced from here. Simon studied the ancient structure. It looked like it had been grown rather than built, its crystalline spires reaching out into space like frozen lightning. And we're just going to walk in and change the rules? Not exactly. She pulled him close, her lips brushing his ear. We're going to use their own system against them. But first, she kissed him, hard and quick. Trust me. Always. The word hung between them, and the purple thread flared so bright it was almost blinding. Arisa's eyes widened. Say that again. I trust you. Always. The energy thread transformed, spreading out into an intricate web of light that surrounded them both. Arisa laughed in delight. That's it. That's what my father saw. You're a natural contract maker. Your word, when given truly, has power. Is that good? That's perfect. She grabbed his hand as their ship was drawn into a massive docking bay. Because we're about to challenge beings who've been manipulating contracts for millennia, and we're going to need every advantage we can get. The docking bay was filled with representatives from every major power in the galaxy, religious zealots, political leaders, crime lords, and beings Simon couldn't even begin to classify. All of them drawn here for the ritual they thought would cement their power forever. As they stepped off their ship, still connected by the web of purple light, the crowd parted. The spectral beings materialized before them, their forms more solid here in the heart of their power. The heirs have arrived, they intoned. The binding shall be completed. Arisa squeezed Simon's hand. Ready to help me steal a galaxy? He squeezed back. Ready to help you save it. The ritual chamber was a vast, spherical space that seemed to exist partly in normal reality and partly elsewhere. The walls shifted and rippled with contract energy, countless agreements written in light and shadow. Simon and Arisa stood on a crystalline platform suspended in the center, the triple moons visible through the transparent ceiling above. The spectral beings floated around them in a circle, while the gathered crowd watched from platforms arrayed like theater seats. The terms are simple, the spectral beings spoke in unison. Accept the original contract. Bind yourselves to the throne's true purpose. And if we refuse, Simon asked, though he already knew the answer, then all contracts fail. The system collapses. Chaos consumes the galaxy. Arisa stepped forward, her violet skin glowing with inner light. You're lying. A murmur went through the crowd. The spectral beings flickered with what might have been anger. You dare? I dare because I finally understand. Arisa's voice rang out clear and strong. The original contract wasn't about cheating death. It was about control. You bound yourselves to the throne to maintain your power over all other contracts. The purple web connecting her and Simon pulsed brighter. Simon felt understanding flow through their bond knowledge that seemed to come from the structure itself. She's right, he said, the words coming naturally. The curse isn't on the throne, it's on you. You're trapped by your own contract, forced to maintain this system forever. The spectral beings began to swirl agitatedly. The ritual must nothing, Arisa cut them off. She raised her hands and the purple energy responded, spreading outward to touch the chamber walls. I am the heir to the cursed throne, and I have found my true match, not by your rules, but by choice. Simon felt power building in the chamber. The contracts written on the walls began to glow. By the authority of the throne, he found himself saying, and by the power of freely given trust. We declare all coerced contracts null and void, Arisa finished. The chamber erupted in chaos. The spectral beings howled as their form began to unravel. The crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and outrage as centuries-old agreements suddenly dissolved. But Simon and Arisa weren't finished. Their shared energy web expanded, touching every corner of the chamber. In place of the old system, they spoke together, their voices harmonizing with power, we establish a new law. No contract shall bind unless freely chosen by all parties. The chamber's walls cracked, light pouring through. The spectral beings made one last attempt to maintain control, but their power was breaking. You cannot. The system will. The system will adapt, Arisa said firmly, just as it adapted to us. She turned to Simon, her golden eyes blazing. Ready for the final push? He pulled her close. Together. Their kiss released a wave of pure energy that shattered the last of the old contracts. The spectral beings dissolved into stardust, their ancient binding finally broken. Above them, the triple moons aligned perfectly, their light transformed from ominous to celebratory. As the dust settled, Simon and Arisa found themselves facing a chamber full of stunned faces. So, Simon said casually, anyone else feel like rewriting some rules? 1 year later. The midnight thorn drifted lazily through the stars, its hull gleaming with recent modifications. In the observation lounge, Simon watched as Arisa negotiated their latest contract adjustment via hologram. No, Senator, she was saying, her tone professional but with that familiar undercurrent of mischief. You can't bind your constituents to vote for you through quantum entanglement. That's not how democracy works anymore. The politician's hologram sputtered. But traditionally, traditions change, Simon cut in, sliding an arm around his wife's waist. Maybe try winning votes the old-fashioned way, actually helping people? After the hologram faded, Arisa turned in his arms. Another day, another attempt to resurrect the old system. Can't blame them for trying. He traced the familiar pattern of the purple energy that still connected them, now a permanent part of their shared life. Change isn't easy. Speaking of change, she pulled up a new holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. Countless points of light represented the new contract system they'd established, agreements based on choice rather than coercion, monitored but not controlled. Everything's holding stable, Simon observed. The new framework is actually working. Of course it's working. Arisa's smile turned wicked. We're very good at what we do. Their new role as contract arbitrators had turned out to be more adventure than administration. They traveled the galaxy, helping negotiate new agreements and dismantling any attempts to restore the old corrupt system. It was part diplomacy, part con game, and entirely more fun than either of them had expected. "You know," Simon said thoughtfully, "your father hasn't tried to contact us once since everything happened. He doesn't need to." Arisa gestured to a distant point of light on the map. "He's out there somewhere, probably setting up his next elaborate scheme. Should we be worried?" "About my father," she laughed. "He got exactly what he wanted. The curse broken, the galaxy freed, and his daughter happy." Her expression softened. "Very happy, actually." Simon pulled her closer. "Even without all the running and explosions?" "Oh, I'm sure we'll find plenty of trouble to get into." She kissed him lightly. "After all, there's always someone trying to cheat the system." As if on cue, their ship's AI announced, "Priority alert. Unusual contract activity detected in the Carina sector. Signs of pre-cursed technology in use." They shared a look of pure joy. "Want to go steal another piece of the galaxy back?" Arisa asked. "With you?" Simon grinned. "Always." The Midnight Thorn's engines hummed to life as they set course for their next adventure. In the observation lounge's window, they caught a brief reflection. Two figures wrapped in purple light, their shared power a testament to the strongest contract of all. And somewhere, in a dimly lit bar at the edge of known space, an ancient alien smiled and dealt another hand of cards. Epilogue. The story spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The con man who won a princess in a rigged card game. The exiled heir who found love instead of power. The couple who broke an ancient curse with nothing but trust and clever thinking. Some said it was just another tall tale, the kind you hear in Spaceways bars after too many drinks. Others swore they'd seen the Midnight Thorn, its hull gleaming with purple energy, appearing just when some powerful entity tried to bind others against their will. But everyone agreed on one thing: the galaxy was changing. The old contracts were giving way to new agreements, freely chosen and honestly kept. And if you looked up at the right moment, you might catch a glimpse of a sleek ship streaking across the stars, carrying two people who had turned the greatest cosmic con game in history into something real. Some said they were heroes. Some said they were troublemakers. But Arisa and Simon, they just called themselves lucky. After all, sometimes the best prizes come from the games you never meant to play. In their private quarters aboard the Midnight Thorn, a small deck of cards sat on a shelf, the same deck from that fateful game. And if anyone looked closely, they might notice that all the cards were marked, just the way Lord Frey had planned all along. "And that's how your grandparents saved the galaxy," Lord Frey concluded, watching the blue flames consume his latest contract coin. The young violet-skinned girl with silver-streaked dark hair sitting across from him in the ancient bar rolled her golden eyes. "But why the card game? Great-grandfather, why not just tell them the truth?" The ancient alien's eyes twinkled with familiar mischief. "Ah, Luna, you sound just like your mother. The truth about contracts is that they must be discovered, not told. Power freely chosen is always stronger than power imposed. He waved his hand, and holographic images appeared above their table, scenes from that fateful story. You see, the original spectral beings were the first contract makers, ancient entities who discovered they could bind reality itself through agreements. But they grew afraid of death, of losing their power. Their attempt to bind death itself created the curse, a corruption that turned all contracts into tools of control rather than cooperation. The images shifted to show the triple moons and the ash temple. They needed the cursed throne and its heirs to maintain their system. Each heir was supposed to renew the original corrupt contract. But I saw something different in the contract streams, a possibility of true love so strong it could overwrite the original binding. "And that's why you chose Simon?" Luna asked, fascinated despite her teenage skepticism. "I chose the moment," Frey corrected. "Your grandfather was a natural contract maker who didn't know his own power. Your grandmother was an heir who rejected the very concept of forced contracts. Together," he smiled, "together they could see the truth that had been hidden for millennia. Contracts should empower, not enslave." "But what about the spectral beings? Where did they go?" "They weren't destroyed, merely transformed. When your grandparents broke the curse, the original contract makers were freed from their own binding. Some say they still exist as pure energy, watching over the new system they helped create." Luna leaned forward. "And the purple energy that connects my grandparents? Ah, that's the most beautiful part." Frey's eyes grew distant. "True love creates its own kind of contract, one that strengthens rather than restricts. Your grandparents' bond became the template for the new system, voluntary agreements that enhance both parties rather than chain them. And now they travel the galaxy, stopping anyone who tries to abuse the old ways," Luna recited proudly, "along with Mom and Dad when they're not busy being boring diplomats." "Indeed," Frey chuckled, "though I suspect they'll be quite interested in that contract coin I just activated." "What was that for, anyway?" The ancient alien's smile turned mysterious. "Let's just say the galaxy might need another generation of contract arbitrators someday. Someone who understands both the old ways and the new. Someone with natural talent, inherited power, and a strong sense of justice." Luna's eyes widened as she caught his meaning. "Me? But I'm just the granddaughter of the two most famous contract breakers in history? Just the daughter of the galaxy's chief diplomatic team? Just a young woman with more raw talent for contract magic than I've seen in millennia?" He raised an eyebrow. "The coin simply ensures you'll find your own path, and perhaps your own perfect partner when the time comes." Above them, through the bar's transparent ceiling, the triple moon shone down, no longer a symbol of curse and control, but of possibility and choice. And somewhere out there, the midnight thorn streaked across the stars, carrying two people who had turned the universe's greatest con into its greatest love story. As for Lord Frey, he simply smiled and began shuffling his deck of cards. After all, there were always more games to play, more contracts to guide, and more love stories to set in motion. The future, like the best contracts, was full of infinite possibilities, all freely chosen, all waiting to be discovered. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't the end at all.